spinning.
Yeah. Okay, recording has started. Well, firstly, we're really sorry, everybody. The LinkedIn gremlins were on full force today on our live, so I'm afraid we are recording this without you being able to join us live and ask questions. But please do use the comment thread below the event to ask questions. So we will come back in after this event. We're recording now. We will post the link to it, and we'll also answer your questions. So thank you all for rewatching, and this is a B2b comms thing with myself and Ayo and Stacey. I think most of you know us, but we'll just very, very quickly introduce ourselves. I'm Emma Drake. I'm a communication consultant working predominantly with built environment companies. I'm also host of the Communication Strategy That Works podcast.
I'm Ayo Abbas. I am a marketing consultant who specialises in the built environments as well. I have a podcast called Marketing in Times of Crisis, and I guess I'm tending to work at the moment with lots and lots of engineers.
Hi,
I know, lucky me.
Hi, I'm Stacey Magewell. I'm a former property journalist turned content creator working with businesses within the built environment sector. I don't have a podcast, and I feel like I feel like I'm missing out. But I don't have a podcast yet. I will hopefully, touch wood, be launching my podcast in the new year.
Okay, great. Well, the reminder is the format today is 3 questions in the next 15 minutes. And usually then we would have questions and answers, but we will jump off and we will come and answer your questions today separately. Ayo said she might eat mince pie. So, you know, she may not. She did promise that. She might do it at the end.
I haven't had time to go to the shops. But
I am dressed as an elf for the occasion. So apologies for the jingling, if you can see and hear that. So I don't need to tell you about the questions today, so I won't do that because we haven't got live questions. So why don't we just kick off, and I will ask the first question today, which is, how do you know what content channels are the right ones for you in 2022? So Ayo, did you want to answer that first?
Yeah, so I guess for me, when it came to kind of the right content channels, I think it's got to boil down to, where is your audience? Where are they? Where do they hang out? You know, if they're on Instagram, that's where you should go. If they're on LinkedIn, that's where you go. And I think, then you choose the content channels that work for you, but also work for your audience. So for me, that's the kind of big one. For me, content channels next year, the big focus for my business and what I'm going to say to my clients is actually going to be email. I kind of think in some ways, as social channels like LinkedIn and Instagram and all of those, as they try and monetize and kind of reduce what they're doing in terms of organic reach, I think driving traffic and your potential audience to real estate or comms channels that you actually own and have more control over, I think that's got to be something we've all got to factor in, especially when you look at the fact of, Facebook was down, wasn't it, not too long ago, and things like that. And it's like, actually, like we say, sometimes, like we've just said, actually, our LinkedIn posts aren't getting as much reach as they have done in the past. Have we been blacklisted? All that kind of stuff. And I just think those types of things, when it's choosing the right content channels, those, the right ones have got to be where your audience are, but also the ones that feel right for you as a person.
Yeah, Stacey?
No, definitely. I would completely agree with that. Be where your audience is. I should know that. I'm a writer, but be where your audience.
Let's gloss over that one.
It's Friday. It's Friday. I can't do grammar on a Friday. Where are your audience, and be on the platforms. But I would also add to that is be on the appropriate platform and use the appropriate content for the story that you want to tell. And different stories might require different mediums. Like I know you use Instagram, and I know a lot of architects use Instagram. It's a very visual platform. So if you've got a visual story to tell, if you can create content that is very visual, then obviously Instagram might be the place for you. But it might not. And so I think it's important to think about the story that you want to tell. And it's also a very important point that you made about email. It was actually a LinkedIn connection, a LinkedIn friend, Heidi Medina, that said, the great thing about email is if a platform goes down or shuts down, or you get blackballed, or whatever it is you can take your email list is your own, and you can take that wherever that's yours. No one's taking that away from you. That is your email list. So I think, yes, definitely email is definitely going to see a resurgence. I was reading some interesting stuff about Clubhouse recently, because I know sort of around this time and earlier this year, Clubhouse was the new thing. Everybody was talking about it. Everyone's desperate to get on Clubhouse. And I did try it, and I didn't like it. And I know a lot of people have tried it and didn't like it, but I know some people that have tried it and continue to use it and get on really well. Yeah. I've read stuff that it's not doing as well as they had anticipated, but they may be introducing new features which makes it more. So there is this thing about trying stuff as well and seeing what works. But I know we're going to come on.
We're going to come on to that. Yeah,
we are going to talk about that. In a bit more detail.
You both cover quite a lot there, actually. I suppose the only thing I would add to that is, for me, in terms of what you should try, or what should be the right channels. I mean, I'm a big advocate of measuring your impact and making sure you understand what's working for you and what's not. But on this particular point, to give up a channel it's sometimes necessary, but it's hard, isn't it? It's hard. We all struggle with that. But I'm a big believer in trying things new and seeing if they work for you. And I know we're going to come on to that as well. But for example, just to your point, Stacey, loads of people tried audio generally in 2020, and in particular, Clubhouse, even Twitter Spaces, podcasts, but it's, a lot of people didn't stick at it, and is that because the format didn't work for them, or is it because they, the time needed was too precious? Did they start for the wrong reasons, or didn't do enough research into their audience? To your point, Ayo, is going where people are hanging out. Just to start a format or a place or a channel is not, test it, absolutely, but otherwise, if you don't really, if you stick with a channel that's not working for you, but you don't know it's not working for you, it's like
a waste of time.
Well, it's running on a treadmill, throwing £5 notes over your shoulder. It's pointless.
I just want to add on Clubhouse. Clubhouse is quite an interesting one, because the whole thing is it was crazy last year, wasn't it? At the beginning, where everyone's like, you can be on Clubhouse. Everything on LinkedIn was join us on Clubhouse. But then it was like, you could only do that if you're on Apple, which lots of people aren't. Android is the biggest platform. That only came in like halfway through the year, by which time everyone had got bored. And also they kind of changed the format. So you were seeing everyone could set up a room and have conversations. So there's just so much trash on there, and you had to wade through it to find good stuff. And so I only joined middle of the year, but it's just a huge time suck. So to be honest,
totally.
I don't
but it really works for some people. It really works for some people, and it's really helped them build a new audience or grow their existing audience. So try things out. I think we're going to come on to that a bit in one of the. So I think the next question is for, are you going to ask the next question, Ayo?
So the next question is, should you mix up your content channels and types in 2022?
Shall I take that?
Go on then.
Go for it, Stace.
I'll do that. I'll answer that first. Which relates to what we've already spoken about being where your audience is. I would say yes, but to a point, because sometimes you can get stuck in one channel or a particular type of format, and if it ain't broke, don't try and fix it. But you might be missing out on an audience by not trying something else. I wouldn't chase the shiny new toy and try and be everywhere. I would be very targeted about where you are, but I would advocate trying something new. And different formats get different traction. Just a silly example. A couple of weeks ago, I posted a video. I did a post on LinkedIn that just absolutely bombed. I turned it into a video. hey presto, brilliant engagement. It was exactly the same content. I just changed the format. So I think there is an argument for mixing things up. And I'm one of the reasons why I mix things up, A, it's partly strategy, but B, it's partly because I just get bored with my own content, putting out the same sort of format. And I learn so much from trying new things that I can then apply to sort of the other types of content. I mean, words are always going to be my main area, and it will be for a lot of people, I'm sure. But that doesn't mean to say you can't kind of mix it up a bit with video, maybe look at audio, if that's appropriate for your particular storytelling and your audience.
Yeah, Ayo?
For me, I mean, just building, I don't have much more to say on top of what Stacey said, but I think as well, you've got to also realize that social channels give like first mover advantage. So if they got a newer feature, they give that priority. Do you know what I mean? Like Instagram Reels, for example, is, if you they get a lot more traction than actual, a post feed or all of that kind of stuff. So I think in some ways trying things out is a way to kind of see, what you're going to choose and all of that kind of stuff. So I think that's my key thing to add there.
Yeah. And I'm a big advocate of having a blended, channel mix. I think, people like John Espirian are in the camp of find one thing and stick at it. And I think if you find your thing, that's great. But don't assume that everyone you want to be engaged with is just on one platform. Is the flip side of that. You do have to work out for your business, for you, where that is and what that right blend of channels are. And they'll be really, I mean, this for businesses that I work with, white papers will always be in the center of a B2B campaign and in-person events. Although interestingly, the Content Marketing Institute did a report recently, which I know we've all read, and about B2b Trends into us three. I'm not assuming everybody has read it. I'm sure you've read it in 2022, and it's really interesting because it is based on what they measured worked in last year and this year, and what their blend is going to be. And video is up there as doing more online events and video. Now you would think, I know this conversation goes on all the time, but would in-person events come back over the top of or in favour of online? And actually, no. It's saying that a lot of marketers are going to be choosing blended online formats for their B2B strategies. And video is really engaging, as you said, Stacey. It could be that video is just more engaging for people, and we're ready to mix it up and have online events have their place now as a staple in the mix, rather than being a sort of extra thing. And it's no surprise really that people are favouring digital. I think we've all got more used to it. But for me, audio in particular, in that same report, it's only around 20% of the budget is going to be on audio formats, but that is up on the previous year still. So that's good news for me as a big audio advocate, because it's so engaging and so accessible. And it is really important, I think, in 2022 to look at audience first content. It's not all about you.
Yeah.
So
I
think, I mean, I had a comment on a poll I did today on LinkedIn, and actually it did resonate, was that people learn and digest information in different ways. So actually, the whole mixing up thing, I think that is key, because that's true, isn't it?
Totally.
Some people prefer audio, some people prefer video. And I think, as well as keeping your own interest, it's your audience as well. So,
And that's a really good point. And, I would add that sometimes doing something a little bit different can really make you stand out from the crowd. I mean, I with the video that I took a post and turned into a video the other week was about stopping the scroll. And somebody actually commented that the reason they stopped and watched the video is because they saw that it was a video, which if that had been a word post, they might not have.
Yeah.
And if you look around at what all your competitors are doing, and if everybody's doing similar types of content, it can actually be an avenue to break out from the crowd a little bit by just trying something different.
I think, absolutely. And I think, I'm a massive advocate of audio through having had the podcast, but also I've discovered how accessible it is and how interesting it is as a format. it's not all about creating chart topping podcasts. And I think that's what people think when they think about audio, and it's not, it really isn't. And I wouldn't rule it out. It's much easier to produce than video, unless you're talking about lives and Insta reels and things that are very quick and at your fingertips. If you're talking about B2b content, which is produced, I would argue, I'm happy to be shot down, that actually audio leans towards being easier to produce as well than video. So should we move on to our next question? Is the final one. That's Stacey,
me.
Is that you?
That's me, yes. When do you know when a new channel or type of content is working and when to give up?
Shall I take that one first?
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, I think it comes back to my earlier point, really, that certainly with businesses that I work with, I'm always surprised. Not enough people are measuring outcomes actually as part of the planning process. So when you're planning your content, and testing things is a good thing, as we've all said, but you still need to set a goal, a time frame, and a budget, and a resource for that new avenue. But you need to review everything. You need to review if it's working for you and take a view, basically. So is it working for you? Well, if you don't start looking at, and lots of people are able to do that because a lot of our content is online and stats are readily available, but you have to look at all of that as well. And it's not just about the views and the engagement, it's actually what is that achieving for your business? And we just had this conversation offline, didn't we? Actually, since I thought of this answer, but why would you undertake activity that isn't proving its worth? And especially now, we're all so time precious, and teams are still reduced and budgets are reduced, and nobody wants to be doing activity that isn't getting your outcomes. So I think if you're going to do anything in 2022, it would be to have some sort of framework for measuring the impact of your B2B content against your business goals.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I would add to that that to give something a go, there's a temptation, to go, oh, I'm not getting much traction with it, to do something a couple of times.
So you've got to give it a really...
You've got to, I think, if you're going to try something new, commit.
How long would you suggest, Stacey, do you think?
Well, the thing is, it depends on the format and how often. So if you're going to do a podcast once a month, then just doing a couple is... You're probably not going to get any traction. You're not going to build any audience with that. So I say, if you're doing a monthly podcast, then I would probably commit to 6-12 months to do, just to see, because that's 6 episodes, 12 episodes. But if you're, if it's say like, a social media format like Reels, I'm going to try Reels on Instagram. You can do those, you can do 2-3
multiple times a day.
Multiple times a day. So, you would maybe, I would maybe shorten that time a bit and say, okay, I'm going to give it a go for a couple of months, or but I think the key is just to give it a go and go in with your eyes open. You're not going to just produce an episode of a podcast and suddenly you're at the top of the list, as you say, following the stats, you're the top of the podcast charts and everybody's engaging, and you're and don't get sort of sidetracked by the vanity metrics, because it's the quality of the engagement and what you, as you say, the goals. What do you want out of that? Does it matter if you're only getting 10 views but you're getting business out of it? If that's your goal. So yeah, that's what I would add. Just go in with your eyes open and give it time. Whatever you try, don't just sort of dabble and then go, oh, it didn't work, and sort of walk away from it.
Can I just jump in there? Sorry, I know you want to answer, Ayo, but just on that, a very, very simple example of that. And somebody's business is very good at this, but when you're like you and I, working largely on your own, I had somebody comment on a LinkedIn post recently. They live in Canada. They're a professional communicator working and living in Canada, and they listen to the podcast and they said it's a great resource. And for me, that was just like, worth every hour. It's just to know that actually that my channels are working together and that people are listening and engaging in other ways with me, and signing up to my list and doing all of those things. That's working. So you've got to weigh that up, haven't you? Sorry, Ayo, jumped in.
I think as well. I think it's also metrics are one thing and measure the impact, but also kind of things like word of mouth as well. I also kind of think that kind of like those kind of things that aren't necessarily a direct cause, but are influenced by what you've been doing. So yeah, kind of have to build in for that as well. So that kind of anecdotal feedback you received, Emma, or you might get a speaking opportunity, or and I just think it's things like that. Or when you talk to somebody and they're like, "Oh, I listened to that podcast," and so I think it's that kind of thing as well. So bear in mind that that's also impact, and that's also metrics that you can use, and just it's not always just the numbers, and I think you kind of got to do that. I think that's kind of thing. And also I completely agree with Stacey, it takes time to build a following. It really does. And it's one of those things where you're just going to kind of sit there and go, let's keep chipping away at this, let's do it for 6 months, let's see how it goes. And I think that's kind of it.
Well, we've been doing that with LinkedIn Live. I mean, obviously we're not live this time because the technical gremlins got in the way. But if we've learned, this is our third one, and I think we've learned so much from doing the first two, and we've refined what we do. How we promote them, all these things around it. I think how we use the content is all a huge learning process, and there isn't you have to start somewhere and treat it as a bit of a learning process, which is another reason to give it a bit of a go, because it might be that you need a few attempts, you need to do a few reels before you get really good at it. You need to do a few episodes of the podcast to refine your technique and really kind of start getting good at it. It's a huge learning process, which you can't do from just doing one go, well, that didn't work, but actually give it a few more goes and it will get better.
Absolutely. So we've covered all our questions today. I just jumped in quickly onto the feed under the event, but no one has actually asked any questions as yet, but maybe they will once we post the recording.
Brilliant.
Alan Swan has actually said he's looking forward to the recording. However, with the increased production levels, I would expect on a recording rather than live stream, because he's expecting elves, reindeer and Father Christmas. So, not just the pesky elves that are getting in the way, but the whole crew. So luckily we're recording. So yeah, thank you everyone. We are back for the first one in the new year in 2022. On 7th of January. But yeah, if there's something that you want to ask, please do comment in the chat under this event that was supposed to be live today, or DM any of us on LinkedIn as well. So thanks very much, everyone.
Brilliant. Have a lovely
holiday.
Bye.
Have a good
break. Christmas. Yeah.
Bye.